How do they determine that? How do they make that determination? They just watch somebody for
Dimensional analysis, that is correct.
All right, there you go. So make sure you get one of those. We might talk about some of them between presentations. This is Dr. Donaldson. Some of you have maybe had him in class. He's going to just give you some cool experiments in science. And this is Laura. She's one of our Project Stay students. And really weird, when I approached Dr. Donaldson about doing this, he said, I've got a perfect person we can use as an assistant. And little did I know, I had just talked to her a couple minutes before that, so it was meant to happen. So I will turn it over to them and let them share with you some interesting things in science.
Well, I have a few experiments, and I also have plan on us just getting our hands in here and making some ice cream. So depending on how hungry you are, we can start with the ice cream, and then I can do a few things, or I can do a few things.
Let's do a few things then.
Do a few
I like
things first.
Dessert.
All right, well, the boss has spoken. So one thing we are going to do with, have some extra liquid nitrogen, because you can do a few experiments with liquid nitrogen in addition to just make ice cream. Does anyone know how cold liquid nitrogen is? Any ideas? Negative 32 Fahrenheit?
No.
Negative 32 Celsius? Okay. Oh, a little colder. Any other ideas? It doesn't count if you Google it on your phone.
Oh, I wasn't.
It is about 321 degrees below zero. So it's pretty cold stuff. You had the 3 and the 2 right, that's right. You just needed one more digit. So you need a special container for liquid nitrogen because it is, in fact, so cold. And so when you pour it out, it pretty much just goes straight to back to the gaseous form again. And as long as it's just a quick little blast, it's not going to hurt you. But prolonged exposure can have quite a different impact on objects.
What's
So,
the difference between liquid nitrogen and dry ice? My son asked me
wonderful
today.
question. One difference is you can legally purchase dry ice at Walmart or other stores. You can't do that with liquid nitrogen. You got to be a professional and have a special container for it. Dry ice is actually made up of carbon dioxide. So anyway,
How cold is it?
it's about negative 78 Celsius. I can't do the conversion in my head for the Fahrenheit. So anyway, we got a tub of racquetballs from Walmart. And I mentioned the prolonged exposure to dry ice. So you can absolutely just kind of pour it on yourself quickly, or pour it on other people is generally the safer way to do it. So just a splash isn't going to, upstairs, 3rd floor? Just a splash isn't going to cause too much damage. Actually, you kind of keep poking that in there. It evaporates really, really fast is the problem. My dish is already over halfway empty. So you can see it going back to the gaseous form. So it's hard to keep my ball submerged when keeps evaporating, but any idea what's going to happen? What happens to objects when they get really cold? They get a little bit fragile, that's right. And so my first year, couple years here, we had blackboards, the old-fashioned hard chalkboards. And so I used to do this demonstration in here a few times and just sling it against the chalkboard. And it turns out whiteboards, the dry erase kind, are much softer. They're not really ideal for hurling frozen objects at. And so my colleagues were rather thrilled at me when I hurled my first racquetball. So now I gotta aim for the bricks. So just a heads up, if any shrapnel comes flying your way, I wouldn't touch it right away because it is gonna be about 300 degrees below zero, and you can get a little bit of a burn. But are we ready to see what happens to my bouncy? Kind of like Terminator 2. If you saw what happens to the evil Terminator when the dry ice or the liquid nitrogen truck spills on him. That's not all too far-fetched. It's not the most scientifically inaccurate thing in that movie. So, another thing, any of you had general chemistry yet? Remember about the gas laws, what happens to pressure when it gets colder?
So this is a regular board.
This is just plain old boring. This is
Air.
mostly, yeah, carbon dioxide and water, as in flowing. So,
Are the effects quicker with an organic object?
I know where you went.
So if you were to try to freeze a flower or something, or?
no, we do that too. So you saw how badly the racquetball shattered all over the place. I brought in flowers and hot dogs and bananas and all kinds of stuff. And our custodians have requested I not do that anymore because nothing like having a chunk of hot dog go hiding somewhere and start rotting. So I try not to do perishables like that anymore. Although if you're very quiet, we might be able to, if everybody can listen. Dang it.
Let's do that.
I've never had one pop on me, but I messed it up when I was trying to. I was wanting you to hear, you can actually hear every time we breathe out, a significant amount of when we exhale is actually water vapor. And so you can actually hear the frozen water rattling around in there like ice, but we lost it. So there's the ice, the water from our breath. So anyway, as chemists, we have a lot of fun playing around with stuff. Liquid nitrogen is one of our favorites. They said it makes good ice cream too. So, Miss Laura, or Laura, how about, here's a different balloon. This is not filled with carbon dioxide and water. This one is actually, how am I going to do that? How about this stuff instead? I guess not. Right, fill this up halfway with water to water. Okay. Okay, another little fun little trick we have here.
So can we touch the ball now?
By now, it's mostly, it's no longer fragile, but it's still definitely cold.
So it goes back to its.
Yes, just like the balloon was trying to go back to its form, but the balloons are a little more delicate. Yeah, y'all can pass some of those chunks around. There we go. Okay. Wonderful. All right, well, what we have here is just a demonstration of how water and oil doesn't mix. So I'm an organic chemist, and most of the stuff we do is rather oily. And so therefore, water is a very common solvent, but it's not the most useful to an organic chemist because most of the stuff we use doesn't mix in water. Right, so if any of you ever go to the grocery store and see the salad dressing or stuff, a lot of times you'll notice there's two distinctive layers and you got to shake up the Italian or vinaigrette or something like that to get it to mix. That's because they involve the more vinegary water layer with the oil layer. And so what we have here is some, basically it's slowly pour the red into the water, please. Just slowly hold it up where everybody can see. What we have here is
When he
some,
steps away from you, Laura,
that's right, I'm gonna go over here, let's stay. It's okay, no, not that fast. No, I'm just kidding. What we have here is some hydrophobic base. It's pretty much oily sand. And so what's going to be neat about this is that it's going to eventually sink to the bottom of the water, just like sand at the beach gets wet when the water mixes with it. This sand is going to remain completely dry. So it kind of has a little sheen around it where the water's going around. You can actually walk around and let
So
it.
it's like the squand,
It's like squand?
Yeah, you ever seen that?
I've not heard of squand.
It's the
Maybe.
same thing. You
I
can
guess.
create all kinds of things when you pull it out of the water and it's dry.
So what is that around the oxygen?
It's going to have some sort of a like hydrocarbon coating on it, much like the oils and gasoline and things like that. So, you know, like if there's an oil spill in the ocean, the gas and oil float on the top. It doesn't mix with the ocean; it separates, and it's because it's less dense, it floats on top of the water. Well, our sand is more dense, so it sinks in the water, but it's still hydrophobic and doesn't mix with the water. And so go ahead, you can get the rest of it dumped in there. Go ahead and dump the rest in, and what you can do is if you slowly drain the water back into your now empty beaker, let them see that the sand is actually, slowly try to, not let the sand, just try to drain the water. Now look at this, let them see the sand. It's still totally dry.
Wow.
So that it never has actually came into contact with the water before. So we have blue sand too. This is known as our Smurf blue experiment. Are you not? Our normal room, I thought. Nobody in there?
All right, that looks good.
Did you want?
Go ahead.
Okay, see what else in here.
So that, going back to that, that's regular sand with just a coating on it.
It's coated in a hydrocarbon coating, and so it doesn't. It's not.
I saw a commercial this morning for something that you can spray on things or make it, water just repel off of it. like
Yeah, I mean they have that for
shoes.
tennis shoes and stuff. Yeah, it's the same
So that's
thing.
kind of the same thing.
They have
It's
a
a-
new material actually that, it's a shirt that they put and they brought it to, I want to say the scientific, I don't know, some sort of expo.
Mhm.
And they time-lapsed a video where they threw mustard on it, they threw ketchup and tea and like all kinds of, and they just see it all just beat it off. And it was a white material and they were like, this is the next evolutionary step in t-shirts.
I could use that because I spill coffee on myself on a semi-regular basis. Okay, at this point, does anyone have any money? I was promised reimbursement for this. Do you have any cash?
Got cash.
I'll take cash.
How much
If it's
cash?
20.
Well, how much you got?
$31.
It's much more fun with a higher denomination bill.
Sure.
I used to do this with my own money, but then I realized that's not very
I work at Missouri Southern.
As do I know, so right.
High nomination bills aren't very popular.
Don't record that.
Yep, get your tongs and get it nice and wet. Oh, here they are. So has anyone ever heard the expression, you have money, maybe it's payday, or you just got some birthday money or something, the expression, it's burning a hole in my pocket?
Got money to burn.
Money to burn?
No, what is
something
that
like
you're putting it in?
It is our magical money burning solution. That looks good.
Department stores have the same thing.
Uh-oh.
Oh.
That's why I don't use my own money.
$1,000.
Right.
That's why I didn't give you a 20.
Yeah, I got a 50 one day from somebody and got a little. So anyway, now this is just a solution of rubbing alcohol in water, about half and half. So
Well,
the rubbing alcohol burns, but the water pretty much absorbs most of the heat, except for the very end there. Still wet from the water,
I'll
but
take it over to Shawnee's and the Lions Den, get there.
there you go. It's still spinnable. So that's something you can do at home. We just threw in a little bit of dye too to make it look magical, but some rubbing alcohol and water, 50-50. Okay. So I only planned for about 20 or so minutes of experiments since we're going to make the ice cream portion. So we do have, I guess, one more experiment to show you. And so, again, I'm a chemist, and basically the field of chemistry generally appeals to pyromaniacs. It's an excuse for us to let out our inner self-destructive behaviors. So, what we have here, one, being a pyromaniac, and two, having access to things that a lot of other pyromaniacs don't. Because of my position, we do have some good times. And so, you know, oftentimes throughout history, there are things that appear like no-brainers, but it's not until something tragic happens that it is really makes kind of people think about it, right? Like the Titanic, like the whole idea of let's have enough lifeboats for everybody. You know, they didn't really think that way until the Titanic sank. Or any of you have heard of the Hindenburg, right? I mean, we watch football in our sporting events, and there's those nice overhead shots from the blimps. You know what those blimps are filled with?
Helium.
Helium. You know another gas that floats in air? Hydrogen. Why don't we use hydrogen in our blimps anymore? Kaboom. Yes. So, I just so happen to have access to tanks and tanks of hydrogen and all kinds of fun stuff. So, why not? Let's just go. All right, do you want to be the, let's see, what's safest for me? I think I will, I guess I'll let you be the detonator. How's that? Okay. I'll hold the balloon, make sure there's no smoke detectors immediately above us. Yeah, this is pretty good. So, imagine this on thousands and thousands of times larger scale, like a blimp.
Whoa, did you get that?
Yeah, I got that.
So, again, it seems like a no-brainer to not fill a passenger blimp with that stuff, but, you know.
So that's what happened in
Somebody
Hindenburg?
decides to light a cig and
Have you ever seen the video?
Paint it with thermite.
they don't do what?
It also helps if you don't paint it with thermite.
Paint it with thermite? Oh, was that part of it?
Yeah, they had aluminum paint and an iron paint that some panels got mixed with. Sometimes.
I see. Okay, well, that's the little collection of science I had out for you.
No dragon breath?
I'm ready for ice cream. I don't know about the rest of you. So,
This is science that ice cream.
Well, absolutely, I mean, yeah, there's a new,
I just didn't say ice cream.
liquid nitrogen is used to make ice cream. There's a new ice cream factory out in Galena. Is it Galena? The ice
Yeah.
cream labs? I mean, that's what you can use.
It's also how to make Dippin' Dots.
Yeah.
Anybody got
You can do Dippin' Dots if you want to slowly dribble. You have the vat of liquid nitrogen, you just slowly drip the ice cream in. It forms little spherical balls that it hits and freezes. We've tried it ourselves. It doesn't work. I don't know. It works okay.
As long as you don't, eat it too quickly like Evans did.
Yeah, if you eat it too quickly, it will stick to your tongue, and then your tongue will
Please.
rip the skin off, and it will bleed, as one of my colleagues found out the first time we tried to make Dippin' Dots. So, anyway, what I would probably suggest is this is really more of a hands-on activity, so I would say half of the room kind of scoot that way, and this half of the room kind of scoot that way. I'm going to let y'all make it. I'm just going to just add the ice cream, or the liquid nitrogen. So, let's see. What? I have the recipe. Yeah. Aha, that's all right. I have. That one will go in the dirty pile. Yeah.
Or you can just super cool it.
Okay. Someone messed up my room here. All right, so I'm going to, please, let's do this orderly. Not everybody run it right. Let's get two halves of the room. Y'all can make your ice
Well, this
cream.
half gather around Lee maybe or something.
Yeah.
Somebody over there gather
Require
around
the
Lee.
least amount of movement. What if we do that? So, I'm gonna need someone to stir, I'm gonna need someone to measure out stuff and pour.
Let's get our red in there. Go ahead.
Wow.
That to one side, I'll take.
You know you like that. It was going to drive you crazy watching everyone be unorganized.
Not if I'm completely hands off. See, that's the term. Hands off. What do you mean by they won? But the second time I tried mine.
Oh, no, now you can now
Need a 3/4 cup.
Here's some sugar, here's vanilla. I just realized I left the salt. I didn't have you buy salt because we need so little, I was gonna just use mine. I need to run grab it out of my office. But, so the recipe is, I'm gonna write the recipe on the board. These are kind of weird measuring cups. There's two values on each cup.
Let's see you do it then, bro.
So we want,
That line is 3/4.
2 cups of half and half. 2 cups of the heavy whipping cream. I want 3/4 of a cup of sugar.
I like this shirt. You just put your.
Vanilla and 1/8 of a teaspoon of salt. So, the only 4 sizes you have should be the 4 sizes, kind of the sizes you need. The little teaspoon, the tablespoon you have in the cups, kind of have all the sugar. I forgot to run grab the salt, so get that. Start dumping it in and kind of get it stirred up. I'll be right back with the salt.
It's on you.
Two cups.
I would eyeball the whole cup.
And that's on. And you already put in a quarter.
I'm not reading this. I just read the title.
I already know.
It was cute this morning.
And you, a lot of my slides.
On the chargers, everybody gets out there.
I don't want to.
Her should have another. No, she says, I'm not trying to impress you, but she's mad.
Oh, he went to get the salt.
Oh, no. Yeah.
Do you guys have vanilla? Can I use that vanilla?
We need it back.
These are handheld beers, huh?
Okay. I brought in, I guess they've already used the vanilla.
We have
Oh,
it.
when I stole it.
That's all right.
Here, I'll give it to them.
And then here's some salt, so pass that down the other one when done. Brought some chocolate.
Yeah.
Right, look at your mess, buddy.
Well, vanilla's pretty good.
Oh, she. My bad.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. My bad.
That's good. I had more to do.
Can you get us some napkins, please? Yep.
Oh, where's the fun of that?
We need more vanilla.
No?
I have no idea what's been on these tables.
Jack,
Yeah, I
just-
do.
Jack,
This
just
is
hand
my
yours.
class supervisor.
People were here before you. So,
Right? Yeah, I actually know the people that sat right here the last two classes.
Slowly
Wait, isn't that
pour
seat
in
normally?
while they stir rapidly.
We need now some salt.
We have napkins and liquid nitrogen is really good for cleaning.
You guys ready?
We need salt.
Hey, yeah.
Oh, yeah. 180.
hey, go grab the salt.
Hey, did you use it with?
So it's about half of that little
That's
sugar.
Sugar.
Do about half of the smallest teaspoon you got there for salt. And then once everything's in there and mixed,
We need a dower.
What? Oh.
All right.
yeah, that's for the other one.
Yes,
Just feel the steam.
Stir fast.
Ready?
No, they're still waiting on their salt. Make sure it's good and stirred.
That's probably enough. We just.
Yeah, if you do it too much, it's not gonna be good, so stir nice and vigorously while you pour slowly. Gotta keep stirring at all times, never stop stirring.
Here, is there like a thing on the side?
No. No.
How are you making? Yeah, hell of a mess.
I am not.
You are. You are.
It's
It's just flying everywhere.
Thanks. Somebody else hold it.
It's all in the red.
Alright, go ahead.
Oh.
Yeah, it's only a little cool.
Trying to do green.
Yeah.
It's nice.
Almost 50.
You weren't there for the dry ice attempt, were you?
No, I've tried that.
It was fun when Anderson were here.
Oh, you going while you're waiting?
Yeah, it didn't, we had lots of spillover. But we learned.
Yeah.
Dry ice powder works
Well,
well,
yeah.
chunks work well for a little bit.
So yeah, we have, you can do this at home with dry ice, because I said you can buy dry ice at Walmart and other places. The problem is, you know, like what's another word for if you're talking generically about Coke, Dr. Pepper, Mountain Dew? Those are also known as what? Soda is one answer.
Carbonated beverages.
You're cheating because you're a chemistry club person, but yes, a carbonated beverage. So, if you use dry ice to make ice cream at home, what you end up doing is making carbonated ice cream.
She's a pro.
I'd say this might need, well, it's probably pretty close to good. Look at some cold. So anyway, your ice cream, if you use dry ice, can be a little bit tangy, like a kind of, because you're forming carbonic acid, and that's what's in the carbonated beverages.
I like soda.
So water mixes with CO2 and forms carbonic acid, and that's when every time you open a bottle of Coke and it bubbles out, that's the reverse reaction happening. It's the carbonic acid breaking back down into CO2. Those bubbles are CO2. And when it stops bubbling, all the CO2 is gone. That's when we say it's flat, and it doesn't taste as good anymore. So carbonation is good for soda pops, but it's not so good for ice
We
cream.
need one more.
Okay. So
If you like root beer floats, you might like the carbonated ice cream.
We need one more still? We can't count.
you probably need more liquid nitrogen. That little one normally doesn't have enough.
Where they at? We'll leave out.
Thank you.
Oh, okay. All right. Well,
Walmart.
spoons. Okay. Pass them on everything.
Yeah, I
Got bowls.
Kim's got all this.
It's also really fun to
Really
use your liquid nitrogen
It
downstairs.
smells good.
Yeah, it is good. Here's chocolate if y'all want any.
You don't need it.
You don't need it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, she does. She doesn't like it. She doesn't even like it.
So why should we wear it?
Well, because it's the sign of the times, I guess. It's the color of the season. No, she.
Everybody get a spoon so I don't take the towel.
You're giving it all.
We need one. We need more. Two more.
We really can't count.
I know, right? It's always the two.
Maybe three, just in
We've
case.
got plenty of everything.
Serious failure.
The bowl runs empty.
Got one?
That's a little soupy.
got one
Liquid
too many
nitrogen. It's starting to melt already.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it was a little thicker.
Laura, can you bring some liquid nitrogen over here?
Now, does that happen because it's so cold that
I'll
it
probably just drink
has
it.
that high fluctuation, or is there a point when you get it so cold and frozen that it remains that way?
Oh no, I mean just like the store ice cream from the store would melt too if you left it out long enough. We just never got that as cold as they do at the ice cream factory.
It's like,
No dragon breath?
I don't do the dragon breath.
Not even with the two.
Hell no.
Other people.
It is hard. It is not as good indoors.
It's like salt.
I know.
they put more in it.
That's like Dippin' Dots. That's Dippin' Dots stuff.
We may need another.
Yeah, no, it's
It's actually pretty good.
Can you put a little piece of that in here?
There's plenty for all.
Probably not something I'm gonna try at home, but.
We don't
We
have.
haven't unopened it.
Remember?
Liquid nitrogen.
I had a runaway supply of.
Liquid nitrogen. Not easily accessible.
Yeah. Did anybody else?
That, she's like, I
Yes.
have
To do
to
this?
I was trying to have fun with
Like
that.
a third batch.
It's the texture of it.
Or if no one wants to volunteer.
Is it better that way?
Oh, yeah, yeah, try a little piece of that.
Oh. Well, I'll use. Are they both being washed?
I got one that was actually a fire.
Here's an extra spoon.
Thank you.
Right.
Jack, you go through this? Jack.
What?
You gotta
This
taste
thick
it
is-
full on like that.
Okay.
Yeah, you can just see how much.
We're out of it.
So there's plenty. We're gonna. So let's see.
Here, you guys want to talk about it? We'll blame it on him. He left it. He left
I
it.
could probably get you more than liquid nitrogen.
There you go. That's what my spoon.
I put the wrong spoon in.
And I'll have two spoons.
Yeah, fill it up. Fill up the big one and bring it over here.
Can we lead back to this?
Yeah, that's great.
Oh, no, I mean,
Give
I'm
me
just,
burnout.
I'm just saying.
Deuces.
I got the food, you know what I mean?
Thanks for
I'm
the ice
done.
cream. Toodles. Thanks for the ice cream and points.
What? We're back.
Did you do your performance?
Well, if you do leave, fill out there before you go.
Oh, yes.
Oh, no, that's not till June 6th. That's his jump card.
You don't wanna fill one out anymore?
Yeah, you wanna fill it out?
You need all the good colors.
Is it?
Yeah, I'll fill one out. Thanks for comment.
I kinda need one, don't I?
No.
Well, you probably do. In order to get ones, I probably
Liquid nitrogen will freeze about anything.
Are you going to?